What's up guys, welcome back to Aquatic Elements. Now today is maintenance day, so we are going to be maintaining the Monster Fish Mega Tank and also the Mini Monster Fish Growout tank. Now whilst I'm doing my maintenance, showing you just how I look after both of these tanks, we're going to be talking about the setups in a little bit more detail. Now I would say the Monster Fish Mega Tank and the Mini Monster Fish Aquarium are slightly more unique aquariums and they're a little bit different from the norm. Now both of these setups work on an internal style of sump filter where I have all of the water essentially contained within the aquarium. Now there is a slight modification to the Monster Fish Mega Tank where this isn't quite the case, but essentially all of the equipment and the water is held within the glass box of the aquarium to reduce any chances of leaking, and it also makes my life easier, and you're going to see that throughout this video. Once we've done all of our maintenance as well and the aquariums are looking a little bit better, we do have quite a bit of algae growing on the glass as it is summertime. The tank's warmer than usual and we're getting a lot of natural light in through the windows. So once we've got that looking nice and a little bit better for the video, I'm going to give the fish some food and we're going to see how they're doing and see how they're feeding, do a little bit of an update on the stock and maybe talk about some of the fish as well. Now, just before we get started on that maintenance, I want to show you the bits of equipment that I used to maintain both of these aquariums. Now, for the new viewers, you may think this is going to be quite a timely process and there's going to be quite a lot to do, and you couldn't be further from the truth. I really want to show you guys that you can keep a stunning aquarium, or well, I personally think a stunning aquarium very, very easily, and you can keep maintenance down to a minimum. And I'm going to talk about the way I've set these tanks up today, the specs of them, and also obviously how I look after them. So first thing I use is this siphon. Now I actually purchased this on my trip in Thailand last year, and it is a brilliant piece of equipment. Sits in the tank, none of the fish can swim up at it because it's got this grill on it, and then I simply put my hose on the other end, and then that plugs in there, plugs into the barbed connector, and then that goes straight out the patio doors, start the siphon, and the water change is away. Now I then obviously need to fill the tank back up, and I use this silicone tubing. Now this one end attaches to the tap that I've got, and the other end pushes back into this piece of pipe, which is then attached into this connector, and it goes straight back in. There is no moving any buckets or anything like that. Then obviously you would be saying, well, we need to dechlorinate the water and we need to treat that water, and I use Seachem Safe, my favorite product to dechlorinate, remove the chlorine and the chloramines. Now this little tub here was, I think it was about $9.99. It treats 250,000 litres and it lasts me a long, long time. And then finally for the filter itself, I'm just going to be changing the filter fleece, which I do every single week, and that is going to be it. So let's get cracking and let's get started. Now the water change has begun and we are siphoning the tank water out of here and outside. So let's get on to a few of the specs of this aquarium. Now for the channel viewers who have been around for a little bit of time, you would already know that this is an 8 foot long by 3 foot wide by 2.5 feet tall aquarium, and this was built by ND Aquatics. Now you may be thinking, why on earth is this tank on the floor? And the honest reason is I don't like to follow the crowd. I like to try new things and I like to be a bit different. Sometimes that doesn't work, but in this case, it is absolutely brilliant. Maintenance is so easy. I can reach over the top of the tank. Water changes still work because I've got about 76 centimeters or 2.5 feet of height in the tank to siphon out of the patio doors. And obviously I didn't have to pay for a stand or a sump underneath the tank, so saved a little bit of cash as well. Now you're probably thinking, you've just got this tank straight on the ground. Are you crazy? And you would be wrong in thinking that. Now I do have this 50 mil or 5 centimeter electrical tape at the top and at the bottom of the tank, and that is hiding an inch of polystyrene underneath. Now this is leveling out any imperfections in the floor. However, I was very, very careful and I made sure to check and double check that the full floor is completely level. So front to back, along the width of the tank and then all the way along, and the floor is bang on level. Now this is a new build property and I've got, who knows, 3-4 feet of concrete underneath this tank. This is a solid concrete floor and it's the foundations for the entire building. So you could park your car on here if you wanted to. It is absolutely solid. Now moving on to the mini monster fish growout tank. Now this tank is a little bit smaller at 200 litres. It is 4 feet long. It's approximately 1.5 foot tall and just over 1 foot wide. So it's definitely not the biggest of tanks, but as I mentioned, it is a growout tank, and these fish hopefully one day will be going into the monster fish mega tank. Now you would see that this tank is on a stand, and I actually purchased this tank second hand, gave it a good clean, and it has come out really, really well for £100, so cannot complain about that. Now this tank is built on the same style as the monster fish mega tank. We've got 2 internal sumps, which are the dual bioflow filters, and this tank's going to be getting its water changed once the monster fish mega tank is done. Very, very similar concept. We've got the water flowing over a weir, through a little bit of filter fleece, and then through a single sponge, and then down into biomedia. Now these filters are full with biomedia, and the monster fish mega tank also has the same concept. I'm holding around 35 kilos of Alpha Grog, ceramic rings, ceramic balls, Biohome, and Biohome Ultimate, Mini Ultimate in there, and that is the same for this tank as well. So plenty of media. I think we've got a few kilos in this tank because we don't nearly have the same level of food input into this aquarium as we do with the big one, but very, very similar concept. And all I'm going to be doing is removing the filter fleece from here and putting a new one in, and then every 4 to 6 weeks I take the sponges out of this tank and the monster fish mega tank, give them a rinse, and then they go straight back in, and that is the filter maintenance done. We've got no canister filters to worry about, we've got no external pipe work, we've got no massive sump under the tank or any big canisters or any pond filters. Super easy, filter fleece comes out, filter fleece goes back in, and that's it for the maintenance. Now, whilst I wait for the water to drain down, I normally do around a 40% water change. These guys are getting fed, I would say, around 4 times per week. Normally I'm feeding every other day or so. Sometimes they get every single day they get fed, but most of the time it's every other day. And that is because these are predatory fish. In their wild habitat, they would not be eating every day. They are having larger meals less often, and that is why I decide to feed them every other day. Everyone has their own technique. This is definitely not the way I would recommend everyone doing it, and this is just my personal preference. It also helps reduce the nutrients, improves the water quality, and so far my fish seem very, very healthy doing it this way. Now I use the trusted Flipper float magnet. Flipper are my favorite magnets to clean my aquariums. I've got the Nano on that tank, and I did have the old non-float version. Now this is about a week and a half's worth of algae buildup, so not that much at all. I really don't get much algae in this tank, and that is due to the filtration and the big pond UV I have on this tank. Now I mentioned in the mini monster fish aquarium, the water flows over a weir into the main vessel where we've got the filter fleece, the sponges, the biomedia, and then it's pumped back out into the tank. Now it does vary ever so slightly differently in the monster fish mega tank, and I'll take you around the side of the tank and show you that now. Now it is a little bit of a tight squeeze back here. I've normally got my plant just in the vicinity here, which covers all of the messy wiring, but you'll be able to see just how this filter works. Now currently I've just got the air bar running whilst I'm doing the water change, just so the fish have got a bit of circulation and they've got plenty of aeration, and it is quite warm today. It's about 30 degrees outside, so the water temperature is pretty warm. But you'll be able to see just how this filter works, and it is a very similar concept as mentioned in the mini monster fish grout tank. The water enters over this weir just here onto this filter fleece. Now, when we check back at the beginning, that filter fleece was white in color, and you can see after just 1 week what this filter fleece looks like. Absolutely filthy, but that is great because it's capturing all of the dirt and detritus in the water, and that is why it is super crystal clear even after a week without any maintenance. Now, the water then enters down through a couple of sponges which sort of support that filter fleece, and then down through some egg crate. We've got our Hygge heater temperature controller on the side there. We've got the Hygge heater just tucked in there. Now the water then percolates down through all of this biomedia. You can see we've got some Biohome, we've got some Ultimate Mini, I think it is, Biohome, and then we've got loads of bags of Alpha Grog, and this goes back 40 centimeters. So we got 40 centimeters wide, and it goes back 40 centimeters, holding all of that. And then the pump is down in the bottom, pumps up into these nice different colored PVC pipes, and then through this Cockney Koi Yamitsu 25 watt UV, out the bottom of that, and then back into the tank where it goes back to the aquarium. Very, very simple setup, and all I do is take that filter fleece out and replace it, and that's what I do every single week. The sponges underneath get done every 4 to 6 weeks, as mentioned. And then I didn't speak about this biomedia, but that will all get removed every 6 months. Take it all out, give it a pump out, and then place it all back in, just to keep that nice and clean. So that is just how the filter works. And I actually built all of this myself, siliconed it in, and it's been going for, I think, just over 2.5 years. And I'm very, very happy with it. You'll be able to see we are now at around the 40% water change mark, and I generally do this on a weekly basis, every 7 days, and you'll be able to see on the mini monster fish grout tank that I'm doing around the 80% water change, 70 to 80%, because it is a much smaller tank. They're still getting a high protein diet of squid, mussels, prawns, which we will see a little bit later on in the video. But it's a smaller tank, bit of a smaller filtration system, so I like to do a larger water change every single week to export all of those nutrients. We've done our algae wipe, we've done our filter fleece change, so it's now time to get them filled back up, let the fish rest and relax for a bit, and then tomorrow we will come back and we will give them some food and do a little bit of a stock update and take a look at some of the fish and see how they're getting on. Now we're filling the tank back up. As you can see here, the fresh water is coming through. I've already dechlorinated it, and it probably will take about 20 minutes or so to fill back up. Now, one thing that's very important when filling the tanks back up, and what I normally do, is make sure to temperature match this water. It's very hot at the moment. As mentioned, it's about 30 degrees centigrade outside. Now, I always will use my laser temperature gun to double check the tank temperature and the fresh water coming in for the first few minutes, just to make sure there's no fluctuations or shocks to the fish. But I'll leave that, as I said, for around 20 minutes or so, and I'll catch you back probably tomorrow once the tank's full, crystal clear again, and then we can do our stock update and check out the fish and give them a bit of food as well. Now, I did mention that I was gonna visit the tanks back the next day and then give the fish some food, but I just wanted to show you just how clear the tanks got in only 4-5 hours. So we're actually going to be feeding the tanks today. First off, I'm going to start with the mini monster fish grout tank, and then we'll head on to the monster fish mega tank. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about the stock, maybe a bit more about the specs, because I did mention at the beginning of the video, we talk a little bit about the specifications of the tanks, and we'll also talk about the stock. So I'm going to defrost some bassa fillet for both of the tanks tonight, and we'll head over now to the mini monster fish grout tank and we can feed them first. Now, whenever I do my maintenance, I wouldn't normally feed the fish on the same day, and I would always recommend, if you are going to feed your fish, give it at least 4 to 5 hours before you feed them, just to let them settle after the water change and you've moved bits and pieces around, and they'll probably be a little bit stressed. But you can see these guys are eagerly awaiting some food. Now, I did mention about the filtration and the volume of this tank. I am also running the D&D temperature control, which is really accurate in keeping this tank nice and level. And then I've just got this little backup stick-on thermometer, just in case it decides to go wrong. So I've got 2 indications on the temperature. And I have got some pretty expensive fish and an expensive collection of fish in this tank, so I want to make sure that the temperature is kept very constant, and we're dealing with a bit of a smaller volume of water. Now in this tank I do have a dwarf giraffe nose catfish. I've got 8 3-bar datnoids, and these are the Datnoides microlepis. And then I've got 3 albino Florida gar. We've still got one that still won't eat. I need your suggestions down in the comment section. I've tried live crickets, I've tried live earthworms, I've tried bassa, squid, mussels, prawns. I've tried wiggling the food on some tweezers when it's out of up at the surface, but still no luck just yet. But we're gonna give these guys some bassa and then see them feeding. Now you will notice the fish definitely know when it's feeding time, and they're getting very, very tame in this tank. Now, if you don't know what bassa is, it is essentially a catfish. Now it's I believe a pangasius catfish. So don't be confused, bassa is not sea bass, it is not a saltwater fish, it does not come from the ocean, and it is a catfish, a freshwater fish. So it's more of a, I would say, a natural style of food to give these guys. Now I do have 4 big datnoids in here, 4 that have really shot on growth-wise and are really packing on the pounds. And I plan to get these in the Monsterfish Mega Tank at some point in the near future. I'm hoping maybe in the next 6 months or so. They are a very slow growing fish, but I'm hoping we can eventually get them in there with the arowana. The only reason I haven't done it yet is because I am a little bit worried Violet could try and eat them. Generally, you will find that datnoids and arowanas do get along pretty well, but I do not want to risk these fish because 1, they are not cheap, and 2, I don't want Violet getting stabbed by any spines, and I don't want to sort of cause any stress for the fish. But 2 of the albino Florida gar are growing really, really well. They are putting on some great growth. It's just that last one I still just can't get to feed. But overall, this tank is doing super well, and I am really happy with the progress of the fish. So that is the update on the mini Monsterfish Growout tank. I'll just put a few more pieces of bassa in there for those guys to graze on, and I'm sure the dwarf giraffe nose catfish will be out at some point to pick up the scraps and clean up the leftovers. But really happy with this tank. Water is crystal clear. The 2 dual bioflows are doing a great job at keeping this tank nice and clean. So let's head over to the Monsterfish Mega Tank and check that out. Now, moving on to the Monsterfish Mega Tank, you probably would have seen me do an update in the day in the life video and the video about my business, Aquatic Elements. So you probably would have seen a little bit of an update in that video. But I'm gonna be giving these guys some food and talking about the stocking as well. Now, I probably mentioned in that video that Violet, the Asian arowana, has been off her food a little bit, but bassa is the only thing I can seem to get her to eat. Now, currently I have 4 stingrays in here. Now, I opted for the albino rays because they tend to stay a little bit smaller than the black diamonds, than some of the other rays you can get. And I also opted to go for males as well because the males tend to stay smaller than the females. Now, I do have one ray called Biscoff, who, if I put waft a bit of the food in the water, he does like to pick up the smell, and he will sometimes come up the glass and hand feed, which is pretty cool. He is, funnily enough, the smallest ray in there. And I have 1 albino pearl cross albino black diamond. I've got 1 albino super hybrid, which is an Asian stingray, Chinese ray, and the other 2 are albino pearls. Then I've also got the stormy eye catfish, which is around that 12 to 14 inch mark in size. I've also got Sheila, the fly river turtle, who is very fussy on food. She will eat any of the high protein seafood and the bassa fillets, but she does not eat any fruit or veg apart from grapes, which are her favourite. So I've also, fish-wise, I've got the Royal Clown knife, who I'm still debating about keeping, not too sure about him yet. He's around that 12 to 14 inch mark as well. And I've also got the 3-bar Datnoid, which I recently picked up. And I've got this massive piece of driftwood. Now I do get a lot of questions about it. This is, I would say, it's probably about 60 kilos dry weight when I put it in the tank. And it measures around 7 feet in length. I've got it on 2 glacial boulders just to give a little bit of hiding space. Now I definitely understand the pros of having a completely bare and open tank. Lots more swimming space for the fish. You don't get the dirt and detritus build up, and the fish aren't going to damage themselves on anything either. However, I find that having this aquascape means that the fish have hiding spots. They're a lot happier, they feel a lot more comfortable, and I don't get any of the build up anyway in the water, and I get none of that. Now the air bar at the back of the tank, I also get questions about that as well, and that is the Aqua Aeration Systems Limited air bar. Now this is 1.9 meters long, and I've had it for, I think I've had it for over a year now, and a really, really good bit of equipment. I would definitely recommend it, and I would definitely use them again. I've got a 6,000 litre per hour return pump, which is pumping the water around the tank and through the filter. So I've got a turnover of approximately 3 times an hour. The total volume of the tank is 1,620 litres, and it's being lit above by the AI Hydra 52 HDs, which are a marine light, but they provide a great shimmer and a great colour throughout the aquarium. They are a very old light. They are probably about 10, 12 years old now, but they are running still well. I think they're towards the end of their life, but a brilliant light. They are a costly light, but they do a great, great job. So now it's time to feed the fish. We've spoken about the new stocking. Now, as mentioned, I've got the Bassa fillet just here. Just chop it up roughly and pop it in the tank for the fish, and then I can show you them feeding. So the albino rays are straight on it. They are straight to the food, and you can see the stormy eye catfish just on the left there, who's around, I'd say it's still around that 14 inch mark, definitely put on some great size. We've got the albino, not the albino, we've got the Royal Clown knife, who was a massive scaredy cat, but is slowly coming out, slowly showing herself. And then we've got Sheila, the fly river turtle, who is always napping under the log in this area. And then we've got Violet as well. See, she's still off her food, and she did knock a scale just on top of her head, which is really frustrating. But you can see the rays are doing really well. They're definitely putting some size on. I just put the camera through the side there. So that's 8 feet of water. And obviously I've just put that Bassa fillet in, so it's not going to be the clearest. But the UV light does a brilliant job. And I would say, if you want to have crystal clear water, using a decent size UV is definitely the way to do it. And it's definitely going to provide some brilliant clarity to your water, and that's one of the things I would say to achieving crystal clear water. Now this tank here is not an Opti-White tank. It is not a low iron glass, and I still do not get that green tinge. There we go, Violet's having a bit of Bassa, which is good to see. She's around the 22 inch mark. I wouldn't say she's quite 2 feet, but she's very close to it. But getting that blue coloured water, that super clear water, is going to be achieved with the use of a big UV. And I've got 35 kilos of biomedia in the tank to really help process the fish waste. And I would say a good flow around the tank helps transport that waste out of the tank into the filter. And still, I do like having a substrate. I do see the benefits of bare bottom. But having a thin layer of substrate, this is only a couple of centimetres, maybe 3 centimetres thick. The rays constantly turn it over, and it keeps all of the suspended solids in the water column rather than sitting, building up under the sand and causing issues. But that is the update on the Monsterfish Mega Tank and the Mini Monsterfish Aquarium. That's also how I do my maintenance. Hopefully it's helped some of you guys at home and maybe given you some ideas for future tank builds. but I will wrap up the video there. And that is it for today's video. Hopefully you enjoyed watching me feed the Monster Fish Mega Tank and the Mini Monster Fish Aquarium, and also showing you just how I do my maintenance, just how easy it is to run both of these tanks. Water changes, super simple. All I do is feed the fish, clean the glass, and change a bit of water, and you can have a absolutely stunning fish tank at home. Hopefully if you enjoyed this video, please leave me some video suggestions down in that comment section. This is social media after all, and I want to interact with you guys. Please leave a comment down below what you thought of the video, maybe what your favorite fish is, and some future videos that you would love me to feature on the channel. But thank you all for watching. Remember to keep those water changes up, and happy fish keeping.